Amelia Clark's life was a meticulously organized tapestry of spreadsheets, early morning yoga, and carefully curated lattes. A mid-level analyst at a burgeoning tech firm, her days were predictable, safe, and utterly devoid of anything resembling high-stakes drama. This particular Tuesday, however, began with a detour into the utterly unpredictable. Running late for her flight to a conference in San Francisco, a frazzled Amelia had mistakenly boarded the wrong plane, or rather, simply taken the first available seat in the chaos of a last-minute gate change. It wasn't until the flight attendant, a woman with a smile as strained as Amelia's nerves, gently informed her that her economy ticket was not valid for the plush, leather-bound seat she currently occupied in first class. That the full extent of her error dawned on her. Mortified, Amelia began to gather her slim laptop bag, her cheeks burning crimson. "Oh, my God, I am so sorry," she stammered, fumbling with her seatbelt. "I must have misread the gate. I'll move immediately." As she made to unclip the belt, a deep, resonant voice, smooth as aged whiskey and carrying an unmistakable undertone of authority, cut through the cabin's gentle hum. It came from directly behind her. "Stay right here. Don't move." Amelia froze. The voice wasn't loud, but it resonated with a command that was absolute, leaving no room for argument or even polite refusal. Every fiber of her being screamed to obey. Slowly, hesitantly, she turned her head, her heart thumping in erratic rhythm against her ribs. She met the gaze of a man who seemed carved from shadow and steel. He was impeccably dressed, a tailored suit clinging to a formidable physique. Dark, intense eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held hers captive. A perfectly chiseled jawline, a faint scar near his left eyebrow, and a silver streaked through his dark, slicked-back hair only added to an aura of dangerous allure. He wasn't conventionally handsome in the way magazine models were, he was something more, something primal and untamed. The flight attendant, sensing the shift in atmosphere, had retreated. Her previous smile replaced by a look of wary respect. The man behind Amelia simply held her gaze, a subtle, almost imperceptible smirk playing on his lips. "You heard me," he repeated. His voice softer this time, but no less commanding. "That seat's yours. Consider it an upgrade." Amelia swallowed hard. An upgrade? From him? This wasn't some generous, benevolent CEO. The tension radiating from him was palpable, a silent warning. There was an undeniable power in his presence, a kind of quiet magnetism that was both terrifying and strangely captivating. She was acutely aware of the expensive cologne that clung to him, a scent of oud and cedarwood, and the way his dark eyes seemed to pierce straight through her carefully constructed facade of normalcy. This man, whoever he was, didn't ask, he dictated. And for some inexplicable reason, despite the fear that coiled in her stomach, a flicker of something else, something akin to curiosity, ignited within her. This was not the kind of encounter that happened to Amelia Clark. Her life simply didn't contain men like this. She was a woman who lived by rules, by order, by the safe confines of her cubicle and her predictable routines. Yet, here she was, trapped in a first-class seat, commanded by a stranger whose eyes held secrets she instinctively knew she shouldn't uncover. The plane began to taxi, the gentle rumble a stark contrast to the frantic drumbeat of her heart. Amelia glanced around, desperately searching for an exit, a reason to escape, but the other first-class passengers seemed oblivious, engrossed in their tablets or sipping champagne. No one seemed to notice the silent, unnerving exchange unfolding between her and the man behind her. She had a fleeting thought, is this what bad choices feel like? Before she could formulate a polite refusal, or even comprehend the full implications of his words, the flight attendant returned. A new, almost subservient deference in her posture. "Mr. Moretti," she murmured, "anything I can get for you or your guest?" Mr. Moretti. The name sent a shiver down Amelia's spine. Resonating with a certain infamy she couldn't quite place, but instinctively knew was significant. He simply nodded, his eyes never leaving Amelia's. Just a scotch. And she'll have whatever she desires. The implication was clear, Amelia was under his unspoken patronage, whether she liked it or not. The plane gained speed on the runway, and Amelia felt a lurch, both from the aircraft's ascent and the plummeting realization that her carefully constructed world was about to be irrevocably altered, all because of a misplaced boarding pass and a command from a man whose very presence radiated danger. She was no longer just an analyst flying to a conference, she was now entangled, however superficially, with a force she could barely comprehend. And the flight had only just begun. The question of what whatever she desires truly meant, in the context of this powerful, enigmatic man, hung heavy in the air, a thrilling and terrifying premonition. She clutched the armrests, her knuckles white, bracing herself not just for takeoff, but for the uncharted journey her life was now embarking upon. The city lights below twinkled, a distant, fading reminder of the normal existence she had just inadvertently left behind. The flight attendant, now seemingly eager to please, brought Amelia a glass of sparkling water with a slice of lime, a silent offering that felt more like a peace treaty. Amelia took a tentative sip, her gaze darting towards the man behind her in the rearview mirror-like surface of her small screen. Their eyes met again, and a small, almost imperceptible curve of his lips suggested he found her discomfort amusing. "My name is Alessio," he offered, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the cabin's quiet, a stark contrast to the polite, almost hushed tones of the other passengers. Amelia swallowed, feeling a strange tension pull at her. "Amelia," she managed, her voice barely a whisper, a stark contrast to his confident declaration. "Amelia Clark." He simply nodded, as if her name was a fact he had already known, or perhaps, one he had already filed away. The implication was unsettling. What did he want? Why had he intervened? The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with unasked questions and unspoken intentions. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being studied, every nervous flick of her gaze, every hesitant breath, scrutinized. Alessio leaned forward slightly, his presence becoming even more dominant. "It seems destiny has a sense of humor, Amelia. Placing an innocent like you in the path of, well, someone like me." His words were laced with an intriguing mix of self-awareness and veiled warning. He wasn't just some wealthy businessman, the air around him hummed with an almost predatory energy, refined but dangerous. Amelia, usually adept at reading people in professional settings, found herself completely out of her depth. His charm was undeniable. A subtle force that drew her in even as her instincts screamed for caution. There was a glint in his dark eyes that suggested amusement, but also something deeper, something she couldn't quite decipher. She wanted to ask him why he had insisted she stay, but the words caught in her throat. Fear, yes, but also a peculiar reluctance to break the fragile, unspoken accord that had been established. It was as if speaking would shatter the illusion and reveal a truth she wasn't ready to face. Instead, she focused on the mundane, the hum of the engines, the gentle sway of the plane. She felt a strange pull, a reluctant fascination that she couldn't quite suppress. His world, whatever it was, felt a million miles away from her spreadsheets and quarterly reports. Hours passed, punctuated by the rhythmic drone of the aircraft and the soft clink of glasses. Alessio occasionally made a comment, a casual observation about the view outside or a sardonic remark about the blandness of airline food, each utterance a small thread weaving her deeper into his orbit. He never directly spoke of his business, but hints of its nature were woven into his very being, the crisp, almost unnerving efficiency of his movements, the way his eyes constantly scanned, assessing, evaluating. He had an air of constant vigilance, as if always expecting something, or someone. Amelia, surprisingly, found herself relaxing a fraction, lulled by the unexpected calm of their interaction, despite the underlying tension. It was a bizarre kind of peace, like sitting on the edge of a volcano, knowing it could erupt at any moment but momentarily mesmerized by its dormant beauty. She learned snippets about him through his stories, carefully crafted anecdotes that revealed little but hinted at much. He spoke of managing complex operations, of negotiating difficult deals, always with a detachment that sent a chill down her spine. He never mentioned a family, or a past, or anything that would ground him in a normal, human existence. He seemed to exist solely in the present, a powerful, self-contained entity. As the plane began its descent, the cabin lights illuminating their faces, Alessio leaned forward once more, his voice dropping to an even lower register. "Amelia," he began, his tone serious now, all traces of amusement gone. "This was not a mistake." Amelia's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" she whispered, her heart quickening once more. "There are no mistakes, only opportunities," he corrected, his gaze unwavering. "And our paths crossing today, it was an opportunity. For both of us." Her mind raced. Was this a threat? A proposition? His eyes, dark and fathomless, held an intensity that both terrified and thrilled her. He reached out, his long, strong fingers brushing lightly against her arm, a fleeting touch that sent an electric jolt through her. "I have a proposition for you, Amelia. A temporary arrangement. You possess a certain, unassuming quality. A talent for blending in. And I have a need for someone with exactly that." He paused, letting his words hang in the air, allowing their weight to settle upon her. "I need you to pretend to be someone you're not. For a very short time. No questions asked. And in return, I can offer you anything you desire." The audacity of it, the sheer nerve, left her speechless. Pretend to be someone she wasn't? For him? Her analytical mind screamed danger, but a darker, more impulsive part of her, one she rarely acknowledged, found herself intrigued. What kind of person needed someone to blend in? And what kind of desires could he possibly fulfill? As the wheels of the plane finally touched down with a soft bump, a tremor went through Amelia. She felt like she was standing on the precipice of a cliff, the wind whipping around her, daring her to jump. The world outside the aircraft windows, the familiar cityscape of San Francisco, now seemed alien, distant. Her perfectly ordinary life was officially over. Alessio Moretti had marked her, not with a physical brand, but with an unspoken pact, a dangerous invitation that she knew, deep down, she wouldn't be able to refuse. The game had begun, and Amelia Clark, the spreadsheet analyst, was about to become an unwitting pawn in a world she never knew existed. The air in the private terminal was crisp, carrying the faint scent of jet fuel and expensive leather. Amelia, still reeling from Alessio's proposition, found herself ushered off the plane not into the bustling main airport, but into a sleek, dark sedan awaiting them on the tarmac. Alessio's men, two hulking figures in tailored suits, with impassive faces, moved with an efficiency that was both unnerving and impressive. One of them, a man with cold, calculating eyes, silently relieved Amelia of her laptop bag, placing it with meticulous care in the trunk. Amelia's initial impulse was to protest, to demand her bag back, to assert her independence, but the words died in her throat. The atmosphere around Alessio was too potent, too absolute. Her usual assertiveness felt utterly futile here. She slid into the back seat, the plush leather cool against her skin, and Alessio joined her, settling in with an ease that suggested he was always in control, always where he was meant to be. The partition between the front and back seats silently hummed up, isolating them in a bubble of luxury and tension. "So, Amelia," Alessio began, his voice devoid of the casual charm he'd exhibited on the plane, now all business. "Let's be clear. Your mistake saved you a lot of hassle. I needed someone. You appeared convenient." He held her gaze, his dark eyes like unblinking sensors. "My family, my organization, operates in a very particular sphere. We deal in influence. And right now, I need someone who can accompany me to a series of high-profile events. Someone who doesn't look like they belong, who can be overlooked, but still presentable. Someone who can blend in as a temporary associate. He paused, a hint of a smile touching his lips. You fit the profile perfectly. Amelia bristled. An associate? You mean a prop? And what exactly is this particular sphere you operate in, Mr. Moretti? She tried to inject defiance into her voice, but it came out as a nervous squeak. Alessio chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that did little to reassure her. Let's just say, Amelia, that where I come from, agreements are sealed with more than just handshakes. And loyalty is paramount. You are not a prop. You are a necessary, temporary asset. And as for what I do, suffice it to say, it's not for the faint of heart. His words were a thinly veiled warning. He wasn't just offering a job, he was offering entry into a world she knew nothing about. A world that reeked of danger and secrets. Why me? Amelia pressed, trying to find a logical explanation in this illogical situation. Surely you have people. People who actually know what you do. Alessio leaned back, observing her. My people are often too conspicuous. Too known. You, Amelia, are a blank slate. Unconnected. Unregistered. You have an air of genuine innocence. A quality that is exceedingly rare in my circles. And for this particular endeavor, that is invaluable. He paused, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly, a fleeting moment of something that Amelia couldn't quite identify. And because I like the way you challenge me. Her heart skipped a beat. A dangerous compliment, if it was a compliment at all. What's in it for me? She asked. Trying to sound pragmatic, like the analyst she was. Alessio raised an eyebrow. Anything you desire, as I said. A new life? Financial freedom? A problem solved? Name it. Within reason, of course. My resources are considerable. He pulled out a small, exquisite leather wallet, not a traditional one, but a sleek card holder, and extracted a single, platinum card. He slid it across the console. Towards her. Consider this an advance. Unlimited, for the duration of our arrangement. Your living expenses, your wardrobe, anything you require to play the part. Amelia stared at the card. It glinted under the dim interior light, a symbol of unimaginable wealth and power, but also a leash. And if I refuse? The words were out before she could properly censor them, a desperate plea for control. Alessio's expression hardened, the subtle humor vanishing, replaced by a chilling impassivity. Refusal, Amelia, is not an option for those who inadvertently stumble into my world. Not if they wish to return to their normal lives unscathed. His tone was flat, devoid of emotion, yet it carried more menace than any shouted threat. It was a statement of fact, a declaration of his absolute power. He wasn't threatening her life, not directly, but the unspoken implication was clear. Her carefully constructed, safe world would be utterly dismantled if she dared to defy him. Amelia's blood ran cold. She finally understood. This wasn't an offer, it was a demand. An order, wrapped in silk and charm. She was trapped. Her carefully planned life, her conference, her job, they were all secondary now. She was a pawn, just as she suspected, in a game whose rules she didn't know, played by a man whose power seemed boundless. The car glided smoothly through the streets of San Francisco, the city lights blurring into streaks of color outside. The realization settled over Amelia with a crushing weight. She was no longer just Amelia Clark, the analyst. She was now Amelia Clark, the accidental companion of a powerful, dangerous man, drawn into a world she never asked for. The platinum card felt heavy in her hand, a tangible symbol of her unwilling capitulation. She was about to step into a life she couldn't comprehend, guided by a man whose intentions were as dark and mysterious as his eyes. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. This wasn't a choice, it was survival. and perhaps a tiny, rebellious part of her wondered, an adventure unlike any she could have ever imagined. Amelia's new reality unfolded with bewildering speed. Within hours of landing, she found herself not in a sterile conference hotel, but in a sprawling penthouse suite overlooking the glittering San Francisco Bay. The apartment was a masterpiece of modern luxury, all clean lines, panoramic windows, and understated opulence. Yet, despite the breathtaking views and designer furnishings, Amelia felt a pervasive sense of imprisonment. It was a golden cage, albeit one with a personal chef, a dedicated driver, and a wardrobe consultant who appeared with racks of clothing that made Amelia's office attire look like rags. Alessio had orchestrated her transformation with an almost frightening efficiency. Her phone had been replaced with a secure, untraceable device. Her emails forwarded to an automated system. Her family and friends were to be told she was on an extended, unexpected business trip with limited contact. It was all a carefully constructed facade, designed to erase her old life and seamlessly integrate her into his. "This is essential for your safety, Amelia," Alessio had explained, his voice calm, rational, yet utterly absolute. He sat opposite her in the penthouse's living room, sipping a glass of aged scotch, while Amelia nervously clutched a cup of chamomile tea. "The fewer connections to your past, the less chance of anyone accidentally tracing you to me. And by extension, to my affairs." He made it sound so logical, so necessary. Yet, every fiber of Amelia's being rebelled against this sudden, complete stripping away of her identity. She was Amelia Clark, not some nameless, faceless associate. "My family will worry," she protested, her voice tight with suppressed fear and anger. "My job," Alessio simply raised a hand, cutting her off. "Consider your family informed by me. They believe you are on a classified project. And your job, well, your company has been generously compensated for your extended leave. You are now officially unavailable." He offered a small, unsettling smile. "Don't worry, Amelia. Your old life is safe, merely on pause. Think of this as a sabbatical. A very lucrative sabbatical." Over the next few days, Amelia was subjected to a crash course in Alessio's world. She learned to navigate high society events, to smile politely at powerful men and their impeccably dressed wives, to hold a glass of champagne without looking like she wanted to chug it. She was taught subtle cues, the art of observation, and the importance of silence. Alessio himself was her primary tutor, his presence a constant, powerful force. He corrected her posture, advised her on appropriate conversation topics, or rather, non-topics, and subtly guided her through social minefields she hadn't even known existed. In these moments, away from the intimidating aura of his business, Amelia caught glimpses of another Alessio, a man of surprising intellect, sharp wit, and an almost courtly grace. He could be charming, even disarmingly so, when he chose. He spoke several languages fluently, possessed a vast knowledge of art and history, and moved with a fluid confidence that was mesmerizing. She found herself, against her better judgment, drawn to these facets of his personality, a dangerous fascination blooming in the barren landscape of her fear. One evening, before a gala, Alessio watched as Amelia, dressed in a stunning emerald gown chosen by his consultant, nervously adjusted a diamond necklace. She looked magnificent, a transformation that even she barely recognized. "You clean up well, Amelia," he remarked, his voice soft, almost admiring. Their eyes met in the mirror. "Is this what you wanted?" she asked, her voice quiet. "A project? A doll to dress up?" Alessio stepped closer, his reflection dominating hers. "No," he said, his gaze intense, pinning her. "What I wanted was someone who wouldn't draw attention, yet would blend seamlessly. You have that innate quality. And if you also happen to be beautiful, that is merely an added benefit." The word beautiful hung in the air, unexpected and potent. Amelia felt a blush creep up her neck. He wasn't overtly flattering her, it was a simple statement of fact, delivered with a directness that was far more impactful than any elaborate compliment. Their proximity was intoxicating. She could smell his familiar cologne, feel the warmth radiating from him. For a fleeting moment, she wondered what it would be like to lean into him, to succumb to the dangerous allure he exuded. But then she remembered who he was, and the world he represented. The golden cage, however luxurious, was still a cage. Their first public appearance together was a blur of flashing cameras, polite smiles, and hushed conversations. Alessio moved through the crowd like a king, acknowledging greetings with a regal nod, his hand subtly resting on the small of Amelia's back. A possessive gesture that both thrilled and unnerved her. She was introduced simply as Amelia, an old friend or a new associate, depending on the context. No last name, no specific affiliation. She was Alessio Moretti's enigmatic companion, and that was enough for everyone. She noticed the way other men of power and influence, looked at her, some with curiosity, some with thinly veiled interest, but all with a respect born of her association with Alessio. It was a strange kind of power, borrowed and dangerous, and Amelia found herself navigating it with a newfound, albeit fragile, confidence. As the night wore on, amidst the opulent surroundings and the hushed whispers of illicit dealings she occasionally overheard, a terrifying thought began to form in Amelia's mind. She was not just playing a part, she was becoming it. The lines between Amelia Clark, the analyst, and Alessio Moretti's mysterious associate were blurring, slowly but surely. And the most frightening part? She wasn't entirely sure she wanted them to unblur. The gilded cage was beginning to feel less like a prison and more like a new home. Amelia's existence in Alessio's world became a bizarre routine. Days were spent in the penthouse, either alone, reading books from Alessio's extensive, eclectic library, or undergoing further training sessions with him. He taught her the nuances of art appraisal, the intricacies of high-stakes poker, and even a few phrases in Italian, his native tongue, which he spoke with a melodic grace that contradicted his ruthless persona. These private moments were where the walls between them seemed to thin. He would discuss history, philosophy, and even, on rare occasions, his own childhood, always carefully curated, always revealing just enough to keep her intrigued but never enough to fully understand him. Amelia, in turn, found herself opening up, cautiously sharing anecdotes from her own structured life, moments that now seemed impossibly naive and distant. There was a strange intimacy forged in these shared silences and carefully exchanged words, an intimacy born of proximity and dependence. Evenings were a whirlwind of exclusive parties, charity galas, and clandestine meetings in dimly lit private rooms. Amelia played her part flawlessly. She was the silent observer, the beautiful accessory, always by Alessio's side, absorbing every detail with her analytical mind. She learned to read the subtle shifts in power dynamics, the unspoken threats hidden behind polite smiles. The weight of a glance. She witnessed deals being made, rivalries simmering, and the absolute, unquestioning loyalty Alessio commanded from his men. The Mafia boss persona, which had initially terrified her, now felt like a second skin to him. She saw the ruthlessness, the unwavering resolve, but also a certain code of honor, however twisted it might be. She saw how he protected his own. How he navigated treacherous waters with a predator's instinct. And she, in her borrowed finery, was somehow included in his circle of protection. During one such evening, at a masquerade ball hosted by a rival family, Amelia found herself momentarily separated from Alessio. She was admiring an antique painting when a man, older, with eyes that held a lifetime of cunning and cruelty, approached her. He was a notorious figure, known only as the butcher in the hushed whispers she'd overheard. "Alessio keeps you close, little bird," he purred, his voice raspy, his gaze unsettling. As it raked over her. A pretty face for a dark business. But a cage is still a cage, no matter how golden. Amelia felt a chill. She knew his reputation for gleaning information, for finding Weaknesses. She met his gaze, trying to project the calm confidence Alessio had instilled in her. Mr. Moretti is a very attentive host, she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The butcher laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Attentive? Or possessive? Be careful, little bird. Once Alessio Moretti takes an interest, he doesn't let go easily. Not even of mistakes. His words were a direct jab, a reminder of her accidental entry into this world, and a chilling premonition. Just then, Alessio appeared, his presence a sudden, formidable wall between Amelia and the butcher. His expression was deceptively calm, but his eyes were obsidian, radiating a silent, deadly warning. Gentlemen, Alessio said, his voice smooth, enjoying the festivities? The butcher's smile faltered, replaced by a strained formality. Just admiring your charming companion, Alessio. A breath of fresh air. Alessio's hand found the small of Amelia's back. His grip firm, possessive. Amelia is indeed a rare find. And not one to be trifled with. The message was clear. The butcher, sensing the shift in temperature, offered a curt nod and retreated. His malevolent eyes lingering on Amelia for a moment longer. Later that night, back in the safety of the penthouse, Amelia recounted the encounter to Alessio. He listened intently, his jaw tight. The butcher is a viper, he said, pouring himself a drink. He preys on weakness. He tries to sow discord. He turned to her, his gaze searching. Did his words affect you? Amelia hesitated. They made me realize how trapped I am. How much I don't know. And how easily I could be hurt. Alessio set down his glass, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. He walked over to her. His presence commanding, yet not overtly threatening. You are not trapped, Amelia. You are protected. As long as you are with me, no one will touch you. No one will hurt you. His voice was low. Intimate, a promise that resonated with both power and a strange, unexpected tenderness. He reached out, his fingers gently tracing the line of her jaw, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. And if you ever feel that way, you tell me. Understand? Amelia looked up at him, caught in the intensity of his gaze. In that moment, surrounded by the opulent silence of the penthouse, she felt a profound sense of both fear and an unsettling, irresistible pull. He was her captor, yes, but also her protector. He was the danger, and the shield. The lines were blurring irrevocably. She nodded, unable to speak, her heart thrumming with a dangerous, new emotion she couldn't yet name. She was walking a tightrope between fear and fascination, between the world she knew and the intoxicating darkness of his. And she knew, with chilling certainty, that she was falling. The facade of Alessio's world, while meticulously maintained, began to crack around the edges for Amelia. She no longer simply observed, she started to question. Her analytical mind, once focused on data and trends, now sought to unravel the complex web of power, loyalty, and violence that defined Alessio Moretti's existence. She noticed the subtle shifts in his demeanor when he spoke to different people, the effortless command with his lieutenants, the guarded courtesy with rivals, the rare, almost wistful tenderness with certain older, respected figures she surmised were family in a deeper, more traditional sense. He was a chameleon, adapting his persona with chilling precision. Amelia found herself studying him, not just as a means of survival, but with a growing, complicated curiosity. One afternoon, while Alessio was engrossed in a phone call, speaking in rapid fire Italian, Amelia ventured into his private study, a room she usually avoided. It was lined with books, not just the classics, but thick tomes on international law, economics, and military history. On his sprawling desk, amongst scattered papers and a high-tech laptop, lay an old, leather-bound photo album. Curiosity, a powerful and dangerous instinct, urged her forward. She picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. The album was filled with sepia-toned photographs, capturing a bygone era. Images of a younger Alessio, barely a teenager, with the same intense eyes. Standing beside an older, imposing man with a striking resemblance, his father, she presumed. There were pictures of large family gatherings, stern-faced men in crisp suits, elegant women in flowing dresses, children playing in sun-drenched gardens. It was a glimpse into a world that felt ancient and powerful, a dynasty stretching back generations. She saw Alessio's family, not as abstract figures of power, but as people, with shared smiles and solemn expressions. Then, her gaze fell upon a particular photo. A beautiful woman with Alessio's dark eyes and a gentle smile, holding a young Alessio's hand. The caption, scrawled beneath in elegant cursive, simply read, Carla, 1995. Amelia felt a pang of something she couldn't name. A sense of loss, perhaps. Alessio rarely spoke of his mother, and the few times he did, a shadow would cross his face, a fleeting moment of vulnerability that was quickly masked. As she looked at the picture, a voice, sharp and authoritative, cut through the quiet of the study. That is not for your eyes. Amelia whirled around, the album clutched in her hands. Alessio stood in the doorway, his phone call apparently concluded, his face a mask of cold fury. His eyes, usually so controlled, blazed with an intensity that made her recoil. She had never seen him so openly angry. I'm sorry. She stammered, her heart hammering. I didn't mean to pry. I saw it. Alessio crossed the room in a few strides, taking the album from her. His touch was firm, almost bruising, as he reclaimed it. Some things, Amelia, are best left untouched. Unseen. He spoke with a chilling quietness that was far more terrifying than a shout. He placed the album back on the desk, carefully closing it. The air was thick with unspoken tension. My mother, she was a woman of grace and strength, he finally said, his voice calmer now, but laced with a profound sadness. She taught me many things. But she also taught me the cost of this life. The sacrifices. The pain. He looked at her, his expression softening slightly, a hint of vulnerability piercing through his formidable facade. This world, it protects its own, but it also consumes them. She was consumed. The confession hung in the air, a rare glimpse into the man beneath the boss. Amelia felt a surge of unexpected empathy, a raw understanding of the burdens he carried. This wasn't just about power and money, it was about legacy, about family, about survival in a brutal world. In that moment, he wasn't just Alessio Moretti, the feared Mafia boss, he was a son, burdened by loss, carrying the weight of his past. I understand, Amelia whispered, her voice barely audible. He looked at her, his dark eyes searching hers, as if trying to gauge the sincerity of her words. A flicker of something passed between them then, a shared understanding, a connection that went beyond their forced arrangement. It was a dangerous moment, a boundary crossed. He had shown her a piece of his hidden pain, and she, in turn, had seen him not just as a captor, but as a man scarred by his past. Do you, Amelia? He asked, his voice low. Do you truly understand what it means to live in the shadows? To constantly be looking over your shoulder? To carry the weight of generations? He didn't wait for an answer. He turned, the moment of vulnerability gone, replaced by his usual controlled demeanor. Go prepare for tonight. We have a meeting with the Rossi family. They are volatile. The command was clear, the emotional interlude concluded. Amelia retreated, leaving him in his study, the photo album a silent testament to a world of hidden pain and profound loyalty. But the image of Carla, Alessio's mother, lingered in her mind, a haunting reminder that even the most powerful men were shaped by their pasts, and that the golden cage had deeper, more personal bars than she had initially imagined. She was no longer just an unwilling pawn, she was a witness to his hidden depths, and that, she realized, was a far more dangerous position to be in. The unveiling had begun, and with it, a new layer of complexity to her feelings for Alessio. The brief, unsettling intimacy of Alessio's study faded into the demanding rhythm of their days. Yet, the glimpse into his personal history had subtly altered Amelia's perception. She still feared him, but now a thread of reluctant empathy was woven into the fabric of her fear. She found herself watching him with a new intensity, trying to reconcile the ruthless strategist with the man who carried the quiet grief of a lost mother. Their interactions became a complex dance of power and unspoken understanding, a dangerous proximity that neither of them seemed willing to break. The meeting with the Rossi family proved to be far more than just volatile. It was a powder keg. The Rossis, a rival faction, were known for their impulsive nature and fierce territorial claims. Alessio had brought Amelia along as his unassuming associate, a move designed to present an image of calm confidence, but it also placed her directly in the crosshairs of a simmering feud. The private dining room in a discreet, upscale restaurant was thick with tension. The air vibrated with barely suppressed aggression, disguised by forced smiles and clinking champagne glasses. Amelia, seated beside Alessio, felt every nerve-ending prickle. She observed the two patriarchs, old men with eyes as sharp as knives, exchanging thinly veiled threats disguised as pleasantries. Alessio, however, remained outwardly unfazed, his composure a testament to years of navigating such treacherous waters. He spoke calmly, logically, his voice a steadying anchor in the turbulent atmosphere. The catalyst for the explosion came swiftly and unexpectedly. A young, hot-headed Rossi nephew, fueled by bravado and perhaps too much wine, made a derogatory remark aimed at Alessio, questioning his authority. Before Amelia could even process the words, the room erupted. Chairs scraped back, voices rose, and suddenly, the polite veneer shattered, revealing the raw, brutal power beneath. Alessio moved with startling speed. In a blur, he was on his feet, his hand gripping the young man's collar, lifting him half off the ground. The casual elegance was gone, replaced by a primal, terrifying ferocity. "Watch your tongue, boy," Alessio growled. His voice low, dangerous, a predator's snarl. "Or I'll cut it out myself." The other Rossi men surged forward, but Alessio's lieutenants, who had been silently positioned around the room, were equally fast, their hands already on their concealed weapons, their eyes cold and unwavering. Chaos threatened to engulf them. In the midst of the escalating standoff, a shot rang out. Not from Alessio's men, nor from the Rossis. It came from outside, a loud, sharp crack that shattered the restaurant window, sending shards of glass raining down. Everyone froze. This wasn't part of the internal squabble. This was an external attack. Alessio immediately released the Rossi nephew, his focus shifting instantly. "Down," he commanded, his voice booming, pushing Amelia roughly under the table, shielding her with his own body. The sound of rapid gunfire erupted from outside, piercing through the sudden silence of the dining room. Glass continued to shatter, furniture splintered, and shouts echoed through the restaurant. Amelia, pressed against Alessio's side, could feel the tension radiating from him, the coiled strength of his muscles. His arm was wrapped protectively around her, holding her close, a surprising warmth in the midst of the cold terror. His lieutenants returned fire, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. The Rossi men, equally surprised and under attack, instinctively joined the defensive, their internal feud momentarily forgotten in the face of a common enemy. "Who the hell is attacking us?" one of the older Rossi men yelled. His face pale. Alessio, his face grim, peered over the edge of the table, assessing the situation. "Doesn't matter now. We get out. And we find out later." He looked down at Amelia, his eyes intense. "Stay with me. No matter what." His words were an order, but also a lifeline. She nodded, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her mind struggling to comprehend the sudden plunge into violence. Her world of spreadsheets had truly vanished. This was raw, unfiltered survival. Alessio, with a series of curt commands to his men, orchestrated their escape. He moved with a practiced ease, weaving through the chaos, always keeping Emilia shielded behind him. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and fear. They navigated through the shattered restaurant, past overturned tables and terrified patrons, eventually reaching a back exit that led into a dark alley. Gunshots still echoed in the distance, a chilling reminder of the ongoing danger. A waiting car, sleek and armored, screeched to a halt, its doors flying open. Alessio pushed Emilia inside, then quickly followed, his men covering their retreat. As the car sped away, leaving the sounds of the shootout behind, Emilia finally allowed herself to breathe, a shaky, desperate gasp for air. She was trembling uncontrollably, her heart still pounding against her ribs. Alessio, seated beside her, pulled her closer, his hand coming to rest on her shaking arm, a comforting, grounding weight. He didn't speak, but his presence was a silent reassurance. He was still the dangerous man, but in that moment, he was also her undeniable protector. The external threat had not just brought them closer physically, it had forged a bond of shared survival, a terrifying intimacy born of violence. Emilia looked at him, his face illuminated by the passing streetlights, grim and determined. This was his world, utterly ruthless and unforgiving. And she, by some bizarre twist of fate, was now irrevocably a part of it. The storm had gathered, and she was caught directly in its eye, with the only anchor being the dangerous man beside her. Back in the secure confines of the penthouse, the adrenaline slowly receded, replaced by a lingering sense of shock and a bone-deep weariness. Emilia sat on the luxurious sofa, a blanket wrapped around her, a cup of hot tea in her trembling hands. The events of the evening replayed in her mind, a dizzying montage of shattered glass, deafening gunshots, and Alessio's fierce protection. She had truly faced death, and he had been her shield. Alessio, after making a flurry of urgent calls in his study, emerged, his expression still grim, but a steely resolve now replacing the immediate urgency. He poured himself a scotch, then sat opposite her, his dark eyes assessing her. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low, a rare note of genuine concern in his tone. Emilia nodded, though her voice still felt fragile. I think so." "What happened? Who attacked us?" Alessio took a sip of his drink. "It was a hit. Not on the Rossi family specifically, though they were unfortunate collateral. It was on me." His words were chillingly casual, as if discussing a minor inconvenience. A rival faction, looking to destabilize things, perhaps send a message. He paused, his gaze fixed on her. "You were never supposed to be exposed to that, Emilia." Emilia looked at him, a sudden surge of anger and fear intertwining. "Exposed? Alessio, I was nearly killed tonight. This isn't some game, this is brutal. I want out. I want my old life back. Now." Her voice rose, fueled by the raw terror of the evening. Alessio simply watched her, his expression unreadable. He let her outburst subside before speaking, his voice calm, but with an underlying steel. "You can't want out, Emilia. Not yet. Not while my enemies know you've been with me." His words were a cold splash of reality. "After tonight, you are no longer just an unassuming associate. You are a witness. And a potential target. Your old life is currently a liability." The truth of his statement hit her with the force of a physical blow. She had seen too much. Been too close. Her accidental presence had entangled her irrevocably. "So, what then?" she asked. Her voice defeated, tears stinging her eyes. "I'm just stuck here indefinitely? Playing your puppet?" Alessio rose, walking over to her. He knelt before her, his gaze level with hers. His strong hands gently taking hers, his touch surprisingly warm and reassuring. "No. You are not a puppet, Emilia. You are vital. After tonight, more than ever. And I give you my word. I will ensure your safety. And when this is over, when the threat is neutralized, I will ensure your freedom and your future. Whatever you desire, it will be yours. His words were a solemn vow, delivered with an intensity that left no room for doubt about his sincerity. In that moment, surrounded by the remnants of her terror, Amelia saw not just the powerful boss, but a man burdened by responsibility, making a promise he fully intended to keep. She felt a strange surge of emotion, relief, fear, and a burgeoning, complicated trust. He tightened his grip on her hands. But for now, you stay by my side. For your protection, and for my own. He paused, his dark eyes searching hers. Tonight taught me that I can't afford to have you anywhere else. You're a blind spot. A vulnerability I hadn't accounted for. The admission was stark, almost brutally honest. Amelia was his weakness, his unexpected Achilles heel. And yet, there was something in his gaze. A fleeting tenderness that suggested this vulnerability wasn't entirely unwelcome. It was a strange, dangerous twist to their relationship. She was no longer just a prop, or even a protected asset. She was a burden, but a precious one he felt compelled to guard with his life. Over the next few days, the aftermath of the attack permeated the penthouse. Security was heightened to an unprecedented level. Alessio's men moved with an even greater sense of urgency, their faces grim. Alessio himself was a whirlwind of activity, constantly on calls, orchestrating countermeasures. His mind working with a ruthless efficiency that was terrifying to behold. Amelia watched him, observing the dark, dangerous brilliance of his leadership. He was not just reacting, he was retaliating. He was a force of nature, protecting his territory, his interests, and, by extension, her. During a rare quiet moment, Alessio found Amelia staring out at the city lights. The constant hum of his world a stark contrast to the silence of her own thoughts. He stood behind her, his presence a warm anchor. This life, he said, his voice soft, it chooses you, Amelia. You don't choose it. Once you're in, you're always in. But you learn to survive. You learn to fight. And sometimes, you find things you never expected. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. A gesture that was both possessive and oddly comforting. Amelia leaned into his touch, her earlier anger replaced by a profound sense of helplessness and an undeniable, growing dependence. The price of his protection was her freedom, but also, it seemed, a part of her heart. She was falling for the dangerous man who had shattered her life, and the realization was as terrifying as any bullet. She was no longer just a hostage, she was a woman caught between two worlds, irrevocably drawn to the dark allure of the one she had stumbled into, and to the powerful, complex man who ruled it. The true cost of her accidental upgrade was just beginning to reveal itself. The attack had escalated the stakes dramatically. Alessio was no longer just dealing with rivalries. He was in a full-blown war. The assailant, identified through a series of swift, brutal inquiries, was a ruthless upstart named Viktor Volkov, a new player in the criminal underworld. Aiming to carve out his own territory by challenging established powers. Volkov's aggression was reckless, and Alessio, a man of calculated moves, was determined to eliminate the threat swiftly and decisively. Amelia, now more than ever, was an inseparable shadow. Alessio refused to let her out of his sight, her safety his paramount concern, a silent testament to the fragile yet potent connection that had formed between them. The penthouse transformed into a war room. Maps were spread across tables, phones buzzed constantly, and hushed conversations filled the air. Amelia, initially relegated to the periphery, found herself drawn into the periphery of his operations. Her analytical skills, honed in the corporate world, proved unexpectedly useful. She began to organize the overwhelming flow of information, creating simplified summaries, identifying patterns, and even offering insights that Alessio, to her surprise, occasionally considered. He would look at her. A flicker of something akin to admiration in his dark eyes, acknowledging her quiet competence. She was no longer just Amelia, she was becoming an unexpected, albeit unwilling, advisor. One tense evening, while poring over intelligence reports, Alessio slumped back in his chair, rubbing his temples. The pressure was immense. "Volkov is more cunning than I anticipated," he admitted, a rare moment of vulnerability. "He's managed to turn some of my own against me." Amelia, sensing his exhaustion, approached him cautiously. "Betrayal?" she asked, her voice soft. Alessio nodded, his jaw tight. "A snake in the grass. Someone I trusted. Someone I brought up." His anger was palpable, simmering just beneath the surface. Amelia, in a rare impulse, reached out and placed a hand on his arm. His muscles were tense, coiled with suppressed fury. "You can't let it consume you," she whispered. "You need to think clearly." He looked at her. His gaze intense, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Her touch, so unexpected, seemed to momentarily break through his hardened resolve. He took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. A silent acknowledgement of her support. In that moment, the lines between boss and associate, captor and captive, blurred completely. They were two people, bound by extraordinary circumstances, finding solace in each other's presence amidst the chaos. The climax of the conflict came a few days later. Alessio received intelligence that Volkov was planning a major move against one of his key operations, a strategic location vital to his network. It was a trap, designed to draw Alessio out. But Alessio, with Amelia's help in analyzing Volkov's patterns, recognized it. He decided to turn the tables. He would walk into the trap, but on his own terms, with an ambush of his own. The plan was meticulously crafted, dangerous, and reliant on perfect execution. Amelia, though terrified, found herself invested. She had seen the cost of Volkov's recklessness, and she had witnessed Alessio's unwavering resolve to protect his people. She understood, in a visceral way, that this was not just about power, it was about survival, about justice in a world without law. As Alessio prepared to leave, the penthouse buzzing with armed men, a palpable tension hung in the air. He turned to Amelia, his expression unreadable. "Stay here," he ordered, his voice firm, but softer than usual. "The safest place is here. You are not to leave." Amelia nodded, but her heart ached with a terrifying fear. She had grown to care for this dangerous man, to see past the mask of the Mafia boss to the complex, burdened man beneath. She couldn't simply watch him walk into danger. "Be careful," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Alessio paused, then did something she never expected. He stepped forward, cupped her face in his hands, and pressed a brief, fierce kiss to her lips. It was a kiss of command, of farewell, of a desperate, unspoken promise. His lips were firm, tasting faintly of scotch and danger. Then, he pulled back, his eyes dark and intense. "I will return," he vowed, his gaze burning into hers. "For you." He left, and Amelia was left alone in the silent penthouse, the memory of his kiss still burning on her lips. Her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and a strange, thrilling hope. Hours stretched into an eternity. The sounds of distant sirens occasionally pierced the night. She paced, she prayed. She replayed every interaction, every shared glance, every unspoken word. The wait was agonizing. Then, just as despair began to creep in, the sound of the elevator chimed. Alessio walked in. His suit disheveled, a few streaks of dirt on his face, but otherwise unharmed. He looked tired, grim, but victorious. His men followed, equally weary, but with an air of triumph. Volkov was defeated. The betrayal neutralized. Amelia rushed to him, throwing her arms around him in an embrace born of sheer relief and a sudden, overwhelming surge of emotion. He held her tightly, his arms strong and comforting, burying his face in her hair. I told you I would return, he whispered, his voice hoarse. For you. In that moment, surrounded by the echoes of battle and the profound sense of victory, Amelia knew, with absolute certainty, that her life was irrevocably bound to his. She had not only survived his world, she had found something unexpected and dangerously profound within it. The alliance they had forged, born of necessity and survival, had transformed into something far deeper, something that transcended fear and control. It was a love born in the shadows, forged in fire, and its future, though uncertain, was now undeniably theirs. The aftermath of Volkov's defeat brought a fragile, tense peace to Alessio's world. The rival faction was dismantled, the traitors dealt with swiftly and decisively. Alessio, ever the strategist, had consolidated his power, emerging from the conflict stronger, but also, subtly, changed. And by his side, no longer just an accidental companion, was Amelia. Her role had evolved, shifting from reluctant associate to trusted confidant, an integral part of his life. She no longer felt like a prisoner in the penthouse. It had become her home, a luxurious sanctuary in a dangerous world. Her old life, the one of spreadsheets and predictable routines, felt like a distant, faded dream. She still thought of it sometimes, a wistful pang for the normalcy she'd lost, but it was always overshadowed by the vibrant, intense reality she now inhabited. She had found a different kind of purpose, a different kind of meaning, in the shadows with Alessio. Her analytical skills, once applied to corporate data, were now invaluable in helping Alessio navigate the complex political landscape of his organization. She was his quiet advisor, her perspective offering a unique clarity that he, steeped in the traditions of his family, sometimes overlooked. She was the light in his darkness, and he, in turn, was the formidable protector who allowed her to shine. Their relationship had deepened into something profound and undeniable. The passion ignited by danger had settled into a steady, burning flame of love and respect. Alessio, the once inscrutable boss, now showed her a tenderness he reserved only for her. He would confide in her, sharing his burdens, his fears, and his rare moments of doubt. He would watch her sleep, his gaze soft, possessive, a silent promise of eternal vigilance. He would kiss her with a depth of emotion that belied his hardened exterior. Amelia, in turn, learned to navigate his complex nature, to soothe his temper, to understand the silent language of his intense eyes. She had fallen completely, irrevocably, in love with the Mafia boss, a love as dangerous and consuming as the world he commanded. One crisp morning, weeks after the conflict, Alessio led Amelia to a private balcony overlooking the city as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. He held her close, his arms wrapped around her, his chin resting on her head. The city, he murmured, his voice a low rumble, it wakes up. Full of possibilities. Full of dangers. Amelia leaned into his warmth, feeling utterly safe in his embrace. And we are part of it, she replied, her voice soft. Alessio turned her to face him, his dark eyes intense, filled with an emotion that made her heart ache. Amelia, he began, his voice serious, I know this isn't the life you envisioned. I know I took you from a world of peace and brought you into one of constant vigilance. But I cannot imagine a future without you now. You are my strength, my balance, my everything. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Amelia's breath hitched. Inside, nestled on a bed of satin, was a magnificent diamond ring, simple yet breathtaking, reflecting the first rays of the sun. Marry me, Amelia, he said, his voice husky with emotion. Be my wife. Share this life, this family, this future with me. I promise you, I will protect you with every fiber of my being. And I will love you, fiercely and completely, until my last breath. Tears welled in Amelia's eyes, tears of joy, of wonder, and of a profound acceptance. This wasn't the fairy tale proposal she had once dreamed of, but it was real. It was raw, and it was undeniably theirs. It was a love forged in fire, a promise whispered in the shadows, a bond stronger than any threat. Yes, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Yes. Alessio. 1,000 times, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, and then pulled her into a passionate kiss, a kiss that sealed their fate, a promise of a future intertwined. Dangerous yet infinitely beautiful. She was no longer just the woman who sat in first class by mistake, she was Amelia Moretti, the wife of the Mafia boss, forever bound to a world of power, loyalty, and an enduring, dangerous love. Their future would be one of constant challenge, of hidden threats and unwavering vigilance. But with Alessio by her side, Amelia knew she could face anything. She had found her place, not despite the danger, but within it. Their story was not one of simple romance, but a drama etched in the crucible of power and devotion, a testament to the unexpected paths love can take, even in the darkest of worlds. A new dawn, yes, but one forever cast in the shared shadow of their extraordinary love.